friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. I wanted to talk about why every prepper should grow flowers. I know a lot of us when we first get started into prepping and growing our garden, we think we want to make the most of our space. We just don't want to grow anything that's going to waste space. So like for me, when I first started, my goal was I'm not going to grow anything that was a waste of space. And I still don't, except for some things that are already established. And even those I don't consider a waste. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I knew I wanted to grow flowers because I knew that there were flowers out there that were edible. And most of them also have medicinal properties. Even those that don't have high medicinal properties all have some kind of nutrients like vitamin C and more. So growing edible flowers is something that will not only provide another type of food source or at least some kind of medicinal use, it can also bring you joy because of the various beautiful colors that they all provide. So I've compiled a list of just some. And again, this is not a fully comprehensive list, but I have quite a few here that I'm going to mention. Most of these are things that I grow myself, but there's many more out there. And here's what you can do before I get started on this list is if you have a flower that you're already growing that you love, or you're thinking of growing a flower that you've been admiring, just look it up. See if you can find any benefits. The first thing you got to find out, is it edible? Then after that, you can check and see if they have any medicinal benefits. And it's very easy to do. You just simply type into your browser, is such and such flower or plant edible? And you should be able to find out what parts of the plant are edible, whether it be the flowers, the leaves, or all aerial parts, or just the roots, or whatever. And once you find out if it's edible, put in health benefits or medicinal benefits of such and such. And that's how you can learn about it. That's how I've always done it. So let me go ahead and start by listing off some of the things that I grow. And I have videos on quite a number of these things. The ones I don't have videos on yet, I will be getting to eventually, but I'll link to my herb playlist in the description box down below so you can go through that and see what all I already have videos on. So obviously a lot of you know marshmallow. Marshmallow is one of my very favorite herbs to grow. I love the beautiful white flowers with a little bit of pink in the middle, but mostly grow it for its medicinal properties. But they grow very tall. They can make, in the summertime, midsummer, make a nice little privacy hedge as well. If you have a nice thick row of them, they're beautiful. I just love them. Daylilies. Now this is something that I started growing because I knew they were edible, but found out not only are the flowers edible, but the whole plant is edible. However, it's best that you cook those leaves before you eat them. But as I said, you can do your own research on each individual one and learn more about it that way. But I know I love the taste of the flowers. Some flowers can have a very grassy flavor and some just have very little to no flavor, kind of like marshmallow flowers. They don't really have much flavor. But the daylily is the one that has this nice sweet flavor, especially that thicker part right at the base of the petal. So delicious and very good in salads. But you can utilize the root, the leaves, and the stems. So roses, there's another one. I started eating roses when I was a kid before I even knew they were edible because I just liked the flavor of them. Pansies. Nasturtiums. Nasturtiums have a lot of great properties. I use all parts. I use the leaves for one thing and the flowers for another. Lavender, leaves and flowers. Calendula is another great one. I grow this mostly for its skin benefiting properties. And last I looked, it was only the flowers that are safe to use. You should stay away from the stems and the leaves when it comes to using calendula. Though I recently heard of someone who eats calendula leaves and I was a little surprised. Honeysuckle. Honeysuckle is one of the newer flowers to my garden. And not only do I love the look of honeysuckle and I love the aroma of honeysuckle, I mostly started growing it not just because of its beauty, but because of its skin benefiting properties. And it does have other beneficial properties as well. And so don't disregard something just because it's beautiful. You may be surprised to learn it might have a lot of other uses. Arnica. Now, arnica is not considered an edible flower, but the flower itself does have its benefits in helping with things like sprains and bruises and other kind of anything used more externally, so even for skin, but mostly you're looking at helping to heal sprains and bruises. So that's something I would combine with comfrey leaves to make either a soak or a poultice out of to help heal something like that. So I did do a video, I think it was 2 years ago, where I broke one of my toes. It was a toe I'd broke before and I re-broke it, and I made a soak out of arnica flowers, comfrey leaves, and also some Epsom salts, but I think there was something else I added in there. So I'll link to that video in the description box down below if you're curious how I did that, and it worked very well to quickly heal up that break. Amaranth is another one. Now, some people think of amaranth as a grain, and when I first heard of it or saw it, it was as a flower, because it makes this, the Love Lies Bleeding Amaranth makes this beautiful dark pink, almost red flower that grows in this kind of chenille rope-like fashion, and I just got them as free seeds, and so I planted them, and I was like, is this a waste of space? I went ahead and planted them anyway because I love the way they looked, but then I immediately also went to research them, and that's where I learned about the amaranth seed being used as a grain, as a gluten-free grain, and the flowers are edible, though I never eat the flowers, but the leaves are edible. The leaves have a nice mild flavor that go well in salads or can be stir-fried. And then Anise Hyssop is another one. It could be considered a more medicinal herb, but it makes a beautiful purple cone-shaped flower, and it has a very strong licorice flavor, which to me tastes better than licorice root, and very close to the flavor of star anise, that licorice flavor that's in that. So the leaves, the flowers, they're both edible. They make a delicious tea, or you can just nibble on them, and they do have their own benefits as well. Now, Echinacea is another one of my very favorite ones to grow, because not only does it add some just bright, beautiful color to the garden, it just has some really great benefits, and I use Echinacea quite a bit. It's one of those things. I actually haven't even used the root of mine yet, because I use the leaves a lot, and even the flower petals, and it's one of the things I add to my cough, cold, and flu remedy, which I'll link to that old video down below. But I do have some new things I'm going to be adding to that, so hopefully this year I'll finally get to make some more, and I'll update that recipe and show you what I'm putting in it now. Now, a couple more that I grow that would be considered an herb, but also the flowers can add beauty to the garden, or the catnip. They make just beautiful purple flowers, and so I don't always harvest all the catnip, because I let some of it flower just to add the color while I'm harvesting the rest of the plant. And then feverfew. Feverfew doesn't have a beautiful smell. It's very bitter, like the flavor, but feverfew I started growing mostly for the sake of its analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties, which are excellent, but very, very bitter. But I will eat them fresh. You can use the flowers. The leaves are where you get most of your potency. It is a beautiful little plant that, again, will add more variety and color to your garden. But it can take over. Once it starts seeding, it'll throw seed all over the place, and you'll have feverfew coming up everywhere. Well, ta-da, I magically changed clothes again. Just kidding. I realized after shooting the video when I went to edit that I'd left out some very important things, so I'm doing a quick little piece here to add these in the middle, and then you'll see me quickly change back to the other clothes I was in. Again, I'm still not mentioning all the many flowers, some that I've grown in the past, like primroses and so on, that are edible, but I meant to mention the sunflowers. Obviously sunflowers, because you get those great seeds. The flowers, the petals, they are actually edible too, but I never eat them. I save them for the seeds so that I can feed them to the chickens. So not only can it be a food source for us, it can be a food source for them. And they're just beautiful and a great bee attractor. And the sunflowers I've been growing in the past have been the Lemon Queen. This year I'm trying 2 new varieties that at the time I'm shooting this video I don't have pictures of ones of my own to show you, but I can show you photos of what they're supposed to look like when they bloom. Hopefully by the time this video publishes, maybe I'll have some in bloom, but usually it's in August that I get the flowers. With all that, the thing about the bees, let's talk about that for just a minute. Another great reason to grow flowers of whatever kind are anything that's going to help attract bees to your garden. And sunflowers are excellent for that because they're tall and they're bright, and so the bees are going to see that and it's going to pull them into your garden. And then another flower or herb that I grow, I just let grow wild in my garden, is borage. And it's very easy to pull up because it self-seeds easily, and if you start to get too much, just pull it up, throw it down on the ground, or give it to your chickens to eat. It makes a great compost layer on top of your soil. Borage is really great because here it's easy to grow, and those pretty blue flowers can be used in many ways. Bees love borage. When that borage is blooming in my garden, I have honeybees all over the place, and I can walk all through them, and not as long as we're not bothering each other, we're totally fine. And so I recommend borage, especially if you're keeping bees and you're doing it for the sake of having that honey. It is said, I can't say this from experience, but I have read that the borage is said to increase honey production in the bees, and it's also known as bee bread because of that. And then the two other points I was going to make is that growing flowers, you can also turn that into a business, whether it be you're using them for seeds to sell to locals or on an Etsy store like we do, which is what I plan to do with those sunflowers if I get them to bloom. I'm going to be able to offer more colors. You can also sell the cut flowers. So I know some people that are already doing that, and I'm thinking about getting into that too. I've had people show up and say, hey, I need a flower arrangement for, I'm getting married this weekend and I need some flowers. So here you go. I went ahead and just gave them to her because I knew her, but that's an option too. It's just another way that you can bring in more income is with those flowers. So not only can you get your own uses and benefits and joy out of watching them grow, you can also make money out of them. And here's the other point I wanted to throw in here that I'd meant to put in my notes, and that was that having things that a lot of people may grow, roses and nasturtiums and all these beautiful flowers, that a lot of people aren't familiar with the fact that these are edible plants, fuchsias and so on, is that these are a food source you can grow that's likely going to be left alone in the case of people breaking into your gardens or whatever and taking your food. They're going to ignore those things, and even the things you do have growing in there. If you've got your lilies and your roses and your whatever all growing amongst them, like I tend to mix everything together, that makes this little food forest that is unrecognizable as a food garden. So anyway, those are the points I wanted to throw in here. Now back to the original video. And then one more I wanted to mention, and again, this is just a short list of the many out there, are fuchsias. Now I saved this one for last because I have yet to actually grow fuchsias for the sake of eating them or using them. I absolutely adore fuchsias, and I keep meaning to get some. One of these days I'm going to go buy a basket. But the flowers, I don't think the leaves are edible, but the flowers and the berries from the fuchsia are edible. I haven't tried them yet, but I have read that they are high in vitamin C. So if you love fuchsias, if you love having those hanging plants, indulge yourself, because not only can you get benefits from those flowers, and it's not a waste of space in that way. None of these things are a waste of space if seeing those bright colors in your garden can bring you joy. And that's what they do for me. So this is why I think every prepper should have one, because sometimes we're always focused on the negative. Oh, this horrible thing and this horrible thing, and we're so worried about having this amount of food or that. And why not have some things that just bring you joy anyway? So even if there's flowers that you're growing out there because you love them, but you find that they're not edible and they don't have any medicinal properties to them, then grow them because they bring you joy. If that's the case, it is not a waste of space, because we need to have joy in our lives, especially now. It's very important. So I have out front, rhododendrons and azaleas are not edible. We have an established rhododendron and azalea out front that's in my front yard garden. They've been there for many, many years, and I leave them because not only do they stay green all through the year, so I at least always have something green out there along with my sage, they also have those times of the year where they give some beautiful flowers. The azalea has some pink flowers. The rhododendron has the white flowers. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Some things to consider. And again, do some research if you're just thinking, well, I wonder if this is edible or usable in some way. Then look it up. And then you can start using it for more than just its beauty. But if it's not, keep it there. Keep it there if it makes you happy. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to check out that herb playlist in the description box down below to learn more about the herbs that I at least already have videos out on now, and be watching for more to come out in the near future, hopefully. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.